Alright, so I'm going to talk about Season 1 of The Clone Wars. It's not Star Wars Clone Wars, it's The Clone Wars. Because that's really a huge difference there. Um, and let me start off by saying that this season, probably more than any of the following seasons, shows a real progression in a lot of different ways in terms of animation, in terms of storytelling, in terms of character, in terms of voice acting. Everything, or almost everything, starts off very mediocre in the first few episodes, but gradually gets better as the season goes on. Um, and I'm not saying the show doesn't get better as the following seasons go on, but I think it's most noticeable here. So, as as uh, as all I don't know, two of my viewers know, I did not like the first Clone Wars movie for a lot of different reasons. Um, the major one being that it didn't feel like a movie. Um, but this show, the first few episodes in particular, carry some of the same problems. In that, the animation, by comparing it to a lot of other animated shows, both 2D and 3D, it's it looks very stiff. It looks the characters look like claymation puppets. So the animation kind of leaves a bad first impression on you. Although some people like this animation at the beginning, so I don't know, but I'm just gonna talk about some of the highlight episodes. I mean, my encapsulated review is that the first season is decent. I mean, it's a decent start to the show. Um, but the uh, first episode really kind of highlights some of the pros and the issues with this. I mean, one of the pros is that the clones, they try to give the clones some semblance of personality. They try to make them more relatable, and more identifiable than they were in the movies in episode 2 and 3. So 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 that, I might be saying this a lot in this video, that gets better as the series goes on, but but where where the show kind of falls apart in the early episodes is that the Jedi and all the heroes are too invincible. I mean, they very rarely lose. I mean, everything seems to always work out for them in the end. I mean, I could be grading on a curve here because the first episode is basically Yoda wrecking wrecking the battle droids for a half hour, but it kind of diminishes the threat when you have characters like Asajj Ventress and General Grievous who always lose. And by the way, General Grievous, they for some reason they kept his voice and his personality from the prequels bringing him instead of making him more in line with the Tartakovsky Clone Wars General Grievous, who was actually kind of intimidating. This one just sounds like the Cookie Monster, and this one, he does kill a lot of. He is capable of killing a lot of Jedi, but he's not intimidating. You don't really see him as any legitimate threat in the grand scheme of things. And granted, part of that could have something to do with the fact that we basically know how this story ends. So so right away, there is the danger of making the good guys seem too invincible, and making the bad guys seem too inept, too incompetent. But to be fair, they do fix that sometime later in the series. But one episode in particular that I still maintain is probably the best episode in the season is an episode called Rookies, which focuses on the clones. I mean it's this random squadron of clones who are stationed at this remote outpost. Um, and and it basically kind of reflects some of those old war stories we hear from our parents or grandparents, where they're like, and I'm not saying this is the case for all veterans, but a good deal of survivors of wars say like, oh, I was in the war, but I never saw any action. I mean, basically, kind of reflects that. It kind of reflects that. It reflects that situation where these clones are basically itching to actually get out on the front lines, but they're just stuck on this deserted outpost. And it's not like they were stuck there for no reason. I mean, they say in the episode it's basically the last line of defense for the home world of Camino, where all the clones are bred and grown and trained. So this outpost is important, but understandably the separatists, the bad guys, never really go anywhere near Camino because I guess they don't really have the resources to spend attacking a planet full of heavily armed clones. So it would kind of be like it would kind of be like if I'm trying to think of an example in real life. It would kind of be if the U.S. instead of pushing forward, starting from the beaches of Normandy, they just flew in and sent a bunch of parachuting troopers down into Poland. I mean, there's just no strategic advantage there. You have no foothold, and you're basically in enemy territory. So strategically, that would not make sense unless you have a very large force attacking. So understandably, there are not really too many threats on this station. But that changes when General Grievous tries to do a sneak attack, and his sneak attack involves sending some assassin droids down to the planet and wiping out the clones in the outpost, and then basically sending an all clear signal to Camino. Wipe out the clones and then keep broadcasting the all clear signal so that General Grievous can attack Camino without anyone knowing what he's going to do. Because if anyone knew what he was going to do, then the Republic would send a bunch of warships to stop him. So that's the basic premise, and the clones are basically these rookie clones who have never seen any serious action. They've had training, but they've never actually been on the front lines. They are tasked with stopping General Grievous and warning the Republic of the attack on Camino, so that the attack can subsequently be averted. And here's what I really like about this episode, is that this was the episode that really made clear to me who the most interesting characters on the show were, at least in my opinion, because I was watching the show and thinking, how am I supposed to relate to all these Jedi Knights who are doing these superhuman feats, and they're kind of secluded away in their, or not secluded away in their temple, but they answer to this higher power. They seem to always they're these kind of mystic warriors. How am I supposed to relate to those people? Because in the original Star Wars, you could relate to Luke Skywalker because he was going on a journey to become one of these Jedi, but you could identify with him because he was basically the audience proxy. He was the everyman. He knew nothing about the Force. He knew nothing about the ways of the Jedi until Obi-Wan taught him. So you could relate to Luke as basically someone the audience could step into, someone whose shoes the audience could step into. Everyone on this show already knows, or all the Jedi and all the evil Sith lords already know about the Force and already know how to wield it. So there is that kind of disconnect, and not that the main characters like Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan, and all the rest of the main characters, it's not that they are completely removed from audience empathy, but the thing is, the clones, for lack of a better term, they seem the most human. Because they are human. They don't have any of these special powers. They are just soldiers who are fighting a war. They are just normal people with normal. They're clones. They're clones of Jango Fett, but they are just normal guys who are trying to survive. They are trying to follow orders. They're trying to be good soldiers, and that was actually kind of compelling, in comparison to the Jedi and the senators who honestly they're never really in much danger. I mean, obviously the Jedi are on the front lines, but they have the Force. They can deflect all these laser bolts coming at them. They have all these additional advantages, whereas the clones, they're basically the brunt force. They're basically the foot soldiers who take most of what the evil separatists deal out. So rookies, and basically most, if not all, of the episodes focusing on the clones in the entire series are the most interesting episodes for me. I'm trying to think, what are standout episodes were there this season? There was one that really kind of pissed me off, where it's this 4-part episode where the I forget what the planet is called, but it's these tentacle-headed aliens, the Twi'leks, I believe is how you say their names. This alien race of tentacle heads, and their planet, their home world, is basically invaded and placed under martial law by the separatists. So the Jedi and the armies of the Republic are tasked with liberating Ryloth. They're tasked with breaking through the enemy blockade and landing their troops on Ryloth and running the separatists off the planet. So that's the basic premise. Okay, I can get behind that. It makes sense that it's a 4-part episode because it's basically a war campaign. I mean, those don't go very fast. So this episode this story arc is pretty solid, except for one episode where it's for some reason, even though she is a teenager, Skywalker gives his apprentice Ahsoka Tano her own squadron of starfighters, and they are tasked with basically knocking a hole in the separatist blockade so that the Republic can break through. But what they don't realize is that it's a trap. I mean, you almost expect Admiral Akbar to pop up, going, "It's a trap." If you can hear the vacuum up there, I'm sorry. I'll move closer so you can hear me better. But what really kind of offends me about this episode is not only do they give a teenage girl control over a whole squadron of troops who have been trained to die at her command, but they also, okay, here's what happens. She finds out when she's already attacking the enemy ship that the enemies set a trap. They call in reinforcements right out of hyperspace, and they basically outflank and outnumber the Republic forces at that time. The Republic forces need to retreat and live to fight another day. But Ahsoka is like, I can handle this. Don't break formation, keep attacking, and like a little dunce, she does not obey the admiral. The admiral, I forget his name, but this admiral, he looks and sounds like John Cleese. Um, I mean, I'm just gonna call him Admiral Faulty because he looks just like him. So Admiral Faulty is telling her like you need to get back here. You are outflanked. Blah 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 blah. And even Skywalker, her master, is telling her you need to come back here. I am ordering you. You cannot win in this particular scenario. So she finally comes back, but surprise, surprise, it's too late, and most of her squadron, I think like one or two guys survive, but most of her starfighter squadron is completely wiped out. I mean, they cannot get back to the command ship fast enough. They are shot down by the enemy, and she basically screws up her first real command. Like a macho idiot. I mean, this is straight out of Die Hard, where the police try to break into the building to free the hostages and they get wiped out. Like a macho idiot, Ahsoka Tano basically screws up her first real command and gets numerous people killed. So you would think that would be a real lesson to her, right? And it is, but I think it's resolved too quickly. I think she gets back on the horse a little too quick because she mopes around, she gets angry, she expresses, to their credit, very very believable reactions to losing your entire squadron. Granted, she shouldn't have gotten command of that squadron at all, but I digress. And basically the entirety of the episode is her just kind of coming back from that. But what I would have done is I would have had her experience some kind of long-term trauma from this experience. Instead she goes and does basically the same thing at the beginning of season 2. But to be fair, I should only judge the episode by itself. But yeah, the rest of the Rylog stuff is actually somewhat interesting because it's well, first of all, you have these two random clone troopers who rescue and befriend a little alien girl who lost her family in the invasion. So that further humanized the clones, in my opinion, and it was a nice little moment in the series. So I like that moment. And what else? I'm just struggling for stuff to say because this season had, in my opinion, very few standout episodes. One episode of Ryloth I really like is when Mace Windu, the Samuel L. Jackson character, who in this series is voiced by Kratos, he's basically on the ground. He has his troops and he's trying to break into the capital city and basically deliver the final blow to the separatists. And I mean, it's the final step in the liberation of this planet. So what he does is he joins forces with a local militia group, this local resistance, and the leader of this resistance is very distrustful. He's very kind of apprehensive. He's basically saying, if we help you, then what's to stop you from doing the same thing that the separatists did? And Samuel L. Jackson's character even says, after we leave, a battalion of clones will be, or a garrison of clones will be stationed here for security's sake. And the resistance leader does not like that. He basically says, how long will it be until I'm fighting you? So that really gives you some pause for thoughts. as to just who is in the right here. And unfortunately, that is somewhat diminished by the fact that we already know what's going to happen. This is all part of the master plan from Darth Sidious, the Emperor. But just if you can somehow push that out of your mind, some of the questions posed about the nature of war and about this war in particular are actually kind of clever questions and very logical, valid questions. So I do like that part of the episode. I do think the Resistance leader warms up to Mace Windu a little too quickly, but it's a 22-minute episode. They only have a very limited time to tell these stories, and the arc is already 4 parts, each focusing on different characters. So I suppose I can't really fault them too much. I have to cut them just that little bit of slack. But here is where, because the 4-part story arc leaves one more episode of the season, and it's basically a hostage crisis episode where this group of bounty hunters who we've never seen before. This group of bounty hunters sneaks into the Senate and takes a group of senators hostage, and basically demands from the Emperor. He basically says, "You will release Zero the Hutt." The really femmy Truman Capote guy from the Clone Wars movie. He says, "You will release Zero the Hutt, or I will kill these senators." And Skywalker tries to stop him, and it's this kind of Die Hard scenario. Once again, I'm bringing up Die Hard, where Skywalker's just sneaking around like an idiot. Earlier, he gave his lightsaber to Padme for some stupid reason, like, "To prove my love to you, I will give you this lightsaber. I'm gonna need it back eventually, but I give it to you." And the Natalie Portman character, who's not voiced by Natalie Portman, the Natalie Portman character, Senator Padme or something, she has the lightsaber while she and a lot of the other senators are being held hostage. So Skywalker is wandering around trying to take on these bounty hunters without his lightsaber, and logically, I will give this episode credit. The bounty hunters, being extremely skilled and working well as a unit, take Skywalker down and add him to the roster of hostages. So these bounty hunters essentially get away with Zero the Hutt and take him back to the Hutt clan, like Jabba the Hutt and the other giant slugs. Now, this episode would be fairly standard if it did not have a really awesome villain. And this villain, up until this episode aired, had never been seen before in Star Wars. This is a bounty hunter called Cad Bane. He's this blue guy with these big red eyes. You saw his species in the original Star Wars. He's this very lanky looking guy. He's dressed as kind of this not really Western preacher, but he's dressed as kind of this really old-fashioned Western gunslinger. And he kind of behaves like a gunslinger too. He shoots first, asks questions later. And I really like this guy because he is. George Lucas apparently in the creative process said, "I want you guys to base this character on Lee Van Cleef from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly." And that really shows, because this guy actually kind of looks like Lee Van Cleef. And also he is so awesome. I mean, that's not really an in-depth explanation, but it's actually really refreshing to see this kind of a roguish Han Solo type character who is very good at his job, knows he's very good at his job, and is just trying to make a solid paycheck, a solid earning by killing people for a living. Um, by killing people and bringing people back and stuff like that. It's hard to describe why I like this guy. Maybe it's because this the whole Western gimmick that he has going on is fairly new to Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars was obviously partially inspired by Westerns, what with the Han Solo and the bar and whatnot. But the way that this character just hits you in the face with the Western influence, the Old West influence. He's got this big wide rimmed hat. He's got this almost like a trench coat thing on. He has these boots. And he uses what look like Star Wars style 6-shooters. I mean, he's actually really refreshing in this in the time in which the prequels were set. I actually wish we saw him in the movies because that might have actually made the prequels better. If we saw this guy, his name is Cad Bane, and yeah, I really like this guy. I mean, immediately when he popped up and snapped the neck of a Senate guard, without a single bit of remorse, he's and actually he actually kind of enjoys what he does. I think that's what I like about this guy. He really enjoys his job. He enjoys the deplorable line of work that he's in. He has absolutely no regrets about falling into this line of work, and that's something I just got to admire. So yeah, he's really awesome. I like the fact that they didn't kill him off, because that's the thing that really plagued season 1, is that they would establish these characters that could be potentially interesting, and then they immediately kill them off. And if not kill them off, then drop them out of the episode, because you have this one episode which is actually written by Paul Dini, where the stereotypical Asian alien from the Phantom Menace, the leader of the Trade Federation, he's captured by the Republic. He's put in a holding cell, and Asajj Ventress is sent to get him. And she has this kind of three-way lightsaber duel with Ahsoka and this green Jedi who's voiced by Olivia d'Abo. But Ventress is actually not the one to set him loose. The one to set him loose is actually a Senate guard that has been bribed. I forget his name, but he's this bleached blonde, very slick looking guy, and he's voiced by James Marsters, and he's like Dooku was paying me a lot for your slimy carcass, so please try to stay alive. So that character could have been a lot of fun, but immediately at the end of the episode, when he's negotiating his reward money, Ventress runs him through the heart. And I'm just thinking, you could have really had something with this guy. I mean, what are some other examples of characters they kill off that could be very good? Okay, there's the big octopus-headed Jedi from the green octopus-headed Jedi, the Kit Fisto guy, from the prequels. He's in an episode. He's voiced by Phil Lamar, with using a really strong Jamaican accent for some reason. But thankfully they do not say "ya man." He's basically tasked with. I mean, it's actually the following episode where he's chasing down the leader of the Trade Federation. He tracks him to what is eventually discovered to be General Grievous's lair. And I really like the design of this lair. I like the layout, I like the style, because it's this very foreboding looking place. Grievous actually has a monster that rather looks... I think it's the same species, I could be wrong, but it's this big monster in his basement that it looks a lot like... It probably is a Rancor from Return of the Jedi. but the thing with this one, it has a darker coloring. It's all armored up. It looks like a Rancor in this kind of a Norse Viking gear. So I don't really know what the point of the armor is, but it's a decent fight. And you basically see the spot where Grievous gets repaired. You see all these masks that he puts on over his organic face, which you never see. And I really like this one shot where Grievous is getting repaired by this really slimy sounding droid. He's like, you have received an urgent message from Count Dooku. So that kind of takes you out of it, but this droid is repairing General Grievous because he was battle damaged by battling Kit Fisto. So he's lying there, scorch marks all over his mask, so his mask has to be replaced. So the robot kind of dislodges the mask and starts to take it off. Grievous is yelling in pain, and just as you are about to see his real face, it cuts to commercial. So that was a really clever tease, I thought. And it really kind of increases the menace you feel toward Grievous. I think it really adds a little bit of depth to his character because this is basically his hideout. This is basically the place where he comes to relax, the place where he comes to get refitted. I think you actually see a statue of him before he was made into a cyborg. So I really like this place, but the thing is, Kit Fisto has this former apprentice that accompanies him on this mission. It's the same species as Admiral Akbar, this really squid-headed looking guy, which I'm guessing it was no mistake that the name they gave him is Nadar. And Nadar, as some people may know, is Spanish for to swim. So that was probably no mistake. But Nadar is basically saying we have to hunt down General Grievous. He's voiced by SpongeBob SquarePants, Tom Kenny. He's like, we have to hunt down General Grievous. We have to. And Kit Fisto's like vengeance is not the Jedi way, because at this point Grievous had killed the clones that they had been sent with. So Nadar's like we have to hunt him down. We have to be more merciless. The Jedi are too soft. And Fisto's like vengeance is not the Jedi way. And Nadar's like the rules have changed. And so it really offers a little bit of insight into the effect that this war is having on the Jedi. And their values. Not all Jedi. I mean, some Jedi like Kit Fisto are kind of maintaining their more pacifistic nature. But just when you think Nadar could be a potentially interesting character to bring back and kind of have him go on this psychological journey with Kit Fisto, he's killed by General Grievous. It's just... There are more characters that get killed off and or taken out of the equation that could be really cool. In fact, the creators of the show actually made fun of themselves in later seasons when they did the same thing, albeit less frequently. Whenever they would kill off an interesting character that had just shown up in one episode, they would be like, "Oh, we pulled a season 1." So at least they're acknowledging that they could have done more with these characters. But overall, season 1 it's okay. It's okay. It's a fairly decent start to the show. It's better than the movie. Some of the episodes you're actually surprised at how much they can fit into the episodes. So. And the animation does get better, it does get smoother, it does get more fluid by the time Cad Bane rolls around in the season finale. So yeah, it will leave you wondering what's going to happen in season 2, most likely. I don't want to say that everyone will like this show, but but I thought the first season was fine. It's a decent action show.